And I want to share some thoughts with you today that I'm passionate about, that I hope will have an impact on your organizations. We're obviously here to celebrate you, the top performers in the industry, and celebrate the things you've accomplished, but I think we can do more than that. A phrase I like to think about is, if you had it to do over again, what would you do differently, if anything? If you had it to do over again, what would you do differently, if anything? That's a phrase I've used for the last 14 years in teaching sales managers in my workshops or consulting with partners on how to improve the professionalism of the salespeople. After every sales call, after every role play, what would you do differently if you could make that call over again, Ken? Well, I'm not here, obviously, to talk about sales leadership to you all. I'm not here to say, how do you get better in that area? But I'm here to talk about high-performance culture, to give you some ideas and thoughts that I think are pertinent to where you are. Because I think it's important you say, hey, we had a great year last year, we continue to excel, but how are we going to do more? How do we energize the employees in our organization? How do we maintain that cutting edge of success? Well, I believe, first of all, it starts with you on an individual basis. I think it starts with attitude. I think it starts with the idea of really saying who you are. And I have a little saying that I want to share with you today, just as an idea to build the emotion here. As we start to spend some time in the next 45 minutes walking through a few ideas and concepts. Today, I walked into the hotel and I checked in and the lady said, "How are you, Ken?" And I said, "I'm terrific," because it's Tuesday. And she kind of looked at me like, "What?" So what I really want to share with you is a little idea about your day. On Mondays, when people say, "How am I?" I'm marvelous. And when I'm Tuesdays, I'm going to be terrific. Wednesday, I'm going to be wonderful. Thursday, I'm going to be tremendous. Friday's fabulous. And Saturday's a super, super day. So all I'm suggesting is when somebody says, "Hi, how are you?" rather than saying, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm good, how are you?" simply look and say, "It's Tuesday, so it's terrific." So what I want you now just to repeat with me. We'll start on Monday, work through the week, okay? On Monday, you're going to be marvelous. Tuesday, you're going to be Wednesday, I'm wonderful. Thursday, and Friday, you're going to be, and Saturday? Super, good. On Sunday, you're sober. So we'll work that out, okay? So it starts with really the energy you have, the ability to create emotion in your people, in yourself, because it all starts with you, as we all know in here. But in organizations of any size, we have management teams, we have people who work with us on a day-to-day basis. We have to be thinking about the emotional aspect of culture, of the emotional impact that we have on our people. So it starts with you and your attitude. So why are we here? Well, in my book on recruiting high-performance salespeople, we talk about the need to be able to maintain culture and hire the right people. This study from Harvard is really why I want to talk to you about the next 45 minutes, about ideas and things that I've observed over the long time that I've been in the channel. I started in the channel in 1975, 76, in that area. So I've been seeing a lot of people change, but the problems we face don't change. The industry we're in is a very complex industry because the things we sell, the things we do, impact other people's businesses. We don't just sell something out the door and never see it again. Those people become friends, become neighbors, and people we work with. So focusing on culture really says I got to be involved with my people and my ideas. So one of the things that I've found in working with people over the last 14 years specifically in the channel is that the people who really are high-performing individuals or who are working in a high-performance organization really have a theme for their life. Now, I'm going to share with you one theme of my life. I have a philosophy in my business that when I get to meet people, I want to enhance the relationship. I want to get to know you a little bit more. I can share some information about me. I'll do that tonight. 2, I want to make sure it's profitable so you get something out of it. And 3, you want to have fun. That's a philosophical statement. But a theme is a little bit different. And I'm suggesting that as you look through the next 18 months or your life in general, no matter where you are in that age cycle, and I just turned 61, so I'm moving up that age cycle, that you have to think about what's my theme? What am I living for? Well, this particular theme came about a few years ago. Take action, stay positive. We all remember 9/11. I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I lived at the time. And I was listening to the radio and working, and all of a sudden I could hear the radio talking about it. I flipped on the TV, and I started watching the towers, watching the people, watching the stock market. And obviously email and phone calls started happening. I started talking to clients and people all over the United States at that point about their lives, what was going on. Everybody was kind of back on our heels. I had to get on a plane 2 days later. One of the planes started flying, and I flew to Atlanta for a client meeting. I can remember getting that plane with 5 people, 6 people on it, walking through the Atlanta airport with hardly anybody on the escalator going up to the baggage claim. I could feel the air conditioning on the back of my neck. It was that quiet walking through that airport. And a lot of us, everybody in this room maybe has a personal story, you can remember that. Well, that morning I had to go, that morning I checked into the hotel, I had a couple hours, so I'm on the phone, still watching TV, talking to people, and I realized, not only as a consultant, but as a leader, and helping clients and helping friends go through tough times, I had to do something about it. I had to pump myself up. So this particular theme was used heavily in the next 3 years. I still use it today. Take action, stay positive. It says something to me, it means something to me. I'm not suggesting it should mean anything to you at all, but I'm suggesting one of the things about high culture organizations is they have a theme, and they have a message that you believe in as you go through life. The next thing I'll tell you about myself a little bit is I like to cook. I have 150 cookbooks. I belong to a cooking club. I make my own pasta. I make dinners for myself all the time. I enjoy that as a hobby when I'm home on the weekends. Well, back about 12 years ago, I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee right now. But I was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, October, sitting down by my living room. I had the fireplace going. I was sitting in one chair. My wife was sitting in the other chair. And I was reading cookbooks, trying to come up with a recipe for an entire menu. We were having our church dinner club coming over in 2 weeks, and we had to pick the recipes for about 12 to 14 people. Had to make sure the appetizers and the salads and the entrees and the desserts all kind of fit together. And I remember that day in Minneapolis in late October, it was cold, getting cold at that point, that I had to think about what the ingredients for all the recipes were and what the items were. And then I realized they all kind of fit together pretty well. At that same time, it hit me that my life was pretty good at that point in time. Things were pretty warm, friendly, family, healthy. Things were right in the balance. So that the food metaphor and the life metaphor kind of fit together. If you have the right ingredients in your life and you have the right pieces coming together, you're in balance. Because one of the things we found is when people are out of balance, both personally or professionally, they tend to not perform at their high levels. So as leaders of your organizations, you've got to be thinking about the people in your organization, and as well as your own life, and saying, do I have the right menu in place so that I can bring the vegetables together, the paella, maybe the gelato, some appetizers, prawns, to make sure that you all have the right ideas and ingredients. You know, when you look at my cookbooks, you'll see me crossed off, 2 tablespoons of garlic. I put in 3 tablespoons of garlic. I want to make it taste better. I get my recipe right in my life. I try to get it right for my food ideas. And so it's important that you think about this for each of you. What I want to share with you now is, we don't have time to go through this individually. If at the end of this you want a copy of your own personal pizza and professional pizza assessment, you can write it on the back of your business card and give it to me, and I'll email it to you. It's a simple assessment I like to do sometimes when I'm working with groups, where we look at the various slices of that pizza, and you start to evaluate yourself. Because I ask you to score yourself on a scale of 1 to 7 in each of those categories. Romance, your physical environment at home, maybe the commitment to personal and spiritual growth. Because what you do then is you connect the dots and you can find out, am I in balance or not? And in the handout that I have, we actually have steps for you to improve in the various areas if you're weak. Again, high-performing organizations have people who are in balance. And it starts at the top, and it works all the way through the organization. On a professional level, you also have a professional pizza, and the same assessment is taken. 8 slices, all put together properly to find out how you fit, how you rank, and where you want to score yourself. Again, if you want a copy of this assessment, happy to give it to you. Just give me your business card at the end of the day or tomorrow, and I'll take that and I'll mail it to you. These are just some of the tactical things you start thinking about to say, where am I in my life? Where am I in my organization? I had a friend say to me, he says, who are you when you no longer do what you do? Well, many of us in our industry identify ourselves as what we do and who we do it to. And in reality, you have to do more. You have to be more from that standpoint. That's why high-performing individuals and organizations have balance. And what we find, especially with sales managers, because that's an area that I focus on a lot, and executives, that when we're out of balance, we're not very clear, and things aren't very fuzzy on the way we communicate, fuzzy in our plans. We need to add clarity to the individual's life, add clarity in there to find balance of saying, where's the gap? If you're out of balance, generally what happens is that you have several things that you are having problems with. It's generally called stress, and we all have that on a daily basis here in our business. So what you have to think about are these kind of 5 ideas here. Plugging energy drains. You need to practice extreme self-care. I call it eliminate the shoulds. I should be doing this. And create some daily stress reduction individuals. So let's look at each one of those. From a plug your energy drain perspective, you need to think about what kind of eats at you. And generally, when I find people who are struggling, the little things are gnawing at them. All of a sudden they had a poor sales day or a poor sales week, or something happened and the emotional aspects burst out. I used to work for a partner, one of my 3 mentors in my life, taught me a lot of things, but he was a very emotional person. In fact, I thought about it this morning. He used to come to these events just like you guys, and I'd be back in Minneapolis as a sales manager, vice president of sales there, working with a team, and I knew every time Joe came back, he'd come back with three more new ideas that we'd have to implement. And I kept thinking, what's he going to do this time? But it was always important to be able to say, how do you release that stress? And how do you release that energy issue so it doesn't eat at you? Number 2, practice extreme care. I like to say you find escape areas. You find situations where you can get away to read a book, obviously do some exercising from that area, things you've heard about eating and taking care of yourself. But this is something not only the people in this room think about, but you should be thinking about it with your management team. Are the managers who report to you, work with you, help you build your organization, are you taking care of them? Are they taking care of themselves? Because in a high-performance organization, especially where you're driving the numbers you guys do in the areas you have, everybody ends up with a little bit level stress. So you've got to think about, how do I find that? And I like to suggest daily rituals. Find you time. When I'm home, I usually try to get up about 6:45, and I walk 3 miles through some hills in the mountains. I live kind of outside Knoxville in the Smoky Mountains. I find that's my best you time. Different for everybody else. I just bought some yoga tapes about a year ago. It helps me be able to stretch and work in that area, and then find the things that you enjoy. All the things to relax and enjoy from a stress reduction helps you start to take care of yourself. And that's really part of the whole idea about finding key life areas and evaluating yourself and saying, how am I doing in the health and emotional side, the relationship side, my net worth side? How are all those tied together? Now, I just wanted to spend those first few minutes talking about you and thinking about the emotional impact, the physical impact of high performance. Because you need to figure out that success equation and figure out, how do I really make sure that personally and professionally that pizza's got cheese, pepperoni, mushrooms, onions, green peppers, everything you want in that pizza, so it all comes back out, you have the right menu for your life. And finding those ingredients becomes really critical when you think about your organization. So all of that is really about you and finding your own life balance. From a corporate perspective, high-performance organizations generally make good decisions in these areas. Now, one of the things I found is because we're in the technology sector a lot of times, we are analytical, we're technical, and we forget about bullet number 2, people and culture. So I want to share some ideas with you about people and culture and how I've seen organizations morph, change, and continue to take advantage of the opportunities. Because as Bob mentioned, some things are changing in the channel. Cloud's having a big impact. We can talk about that later if you'd like. But thinking about these 5 areas, are you making the right decisions? High-performing organizations have ways to do that in each. And one of the key elements is they're delivering customer results. Customer results are an important element, and it's one of the reasons you all have grown your companies, because you've been able to take care of that. So the concept here really is we want people who are committed, working together for the common good, and they're doing it for the long period. The reason you get those success factors that the Harvard study pointed out was you have people working together for a long time, and they want to be there. They want to be there. There was an article in Information Week just May 14th this year, Information Week. One of the most interesting reasons for looking for a new job, cited by 41% of staffers and managers, is disliking the company's management or culture. It's why people are leaving, or we should be concerned about people leaving, just in the last May issue. So high-performance organizations then are really thinking about you as leaders. We find out sometimes where everybody's following you, it's great, things are great, and all of a sudden you turn around and there's nobody behind us. Okay, because we forgot to focus on people and culture. We're focused on the business aspects of it. So part of leadership is really getting everybody around, excited, focused, and really working together on that basis. That's why from a basic management and leadership issue, we all know this, people, process, and programs. But I ask you today, what are you doing around people and culture? Are you focused around the issues of building the types of culture you want? And are you putting the programs in place to do that? Because high-performing organizations have some common criteria. Let's just go through a couple of these criteria and give you an idea. They create a clear course, purpose, vision, mission, strategies, and people know them. In a larger organization, I find a lot of times where management may understand vision and focus and strategies, but it's not permeated through the organization. And that's why measurement, focus, goals, objectives become a critical first step of culture. Second part of culture, they have character, and it defines the qualities and values of the team. And people understand what the organization believes in, and the message gets across to those people, and the standards of high integrity are known. In some organizations, I've actually seen that in the lobby, printed, and more than printed, at the president, the management team talks about them in their daily interaction with people, and they reinforce the integrity from that issue. So high-performance organizations focus in this area as well as in actionable items of tactically delivering products and services to our customers. Next, third, commitment is unwavering. People are committed to clear roles, responsibilities aligned to the organization. Ask yourself, if you've got 500 people in your company, you've got 1,000 people in your company, are all those people committed unwaveringly to your ethics and integrity? And people act and think accountably. You know, Katrina, when that hit New Orleans, the president of Walmart communicated to the presidents or managers of the various Walmarts that we probably aren't going to be able to talk to you, and you probably aren't going to be able to talk to us in the next 2 weeks based upon what could potentially happen. So I want you to go out there and I want you to make the decisions that is best for Walmart, best for your customers, and that you are placed in the decision to make. And during that time, several of those managers opened up the stores. Mothers with babies came in and got diapers and baby food. Some of them opened up the restaurant or the grocery store to people so they could get food and other issues. So people can make that decision if they understand the culture and they're given the accountability for it, but they also understand there was integrity and ethics behind it. Collaboration. Collaboration is critical because in that area, people are working together. I like to do this a lot in organizations where we're either trying to change culture or we've got a lot of problems to fix. We will create cross-departmental groups to solve problems. We'll have some technical people, some salespeople, maybe some administrative people attacking, looking at a particular problem. And people are starting to work together. They start to see how that happens. And all of a sudden, there's relationships, there's communication increases. High performance starts to accelerate because collaboration is an accepted issue. There can be fights and there can be discussions, but people can come together in that area. So in your organization, you start thinking about how are we really doing this, and do I have an active campaign in my organization to stress ethics, integrity, and collaboration. Lastly, change is accepted. I've done a lot of work in the cloud the last 18 months, 24 months. We won't get into all the aspects of that. but there's a lot of issues around that. When a lot of you went through managed service changes, there were a lot of technical teams that really kind of didn't like the change they were starting to see. Cloud's going to change a lot of issues from sales process to certainly managing the business, looking at wallet share, and a variety of other issues. Change is something that you have to sell. Change is something that you have to consider. But high-performance organizations accept it, move on, plan with it, work through it, and make it happen. So think about your organization, as you say, of high performance, and say, are we doing this on a scale of 1 to 5? How would I rate my team? How do I rate my company? What am I doing from those particular areas? And lastly, coaching. If you had it to do over again, what would you do differently, if anything? Coaching becomes a major element of growing people, growing teams. People want to stay with organizations where there's a culture of high performance, where they can look at it and feel good about going to work every day, and that people are helping them grow. So what are you doing with your management team? How are you helping them grow? How are you coaching them? How is your management team coaching their employees? Is there an active educational program going on in that area? Feedback is critical from all levels of people from that area. So just looking at the traits of high performance, then, you need to start thinking about you. And moving back to what I call a 3-step menu of life, because finding out about culture is important and looking at your organization there, but saying, how do I look? And the first step is what I call you have impact. Impact is a critical area. What I'm suggesting here is you have impact on the lives of other people. You have impact in the lives not only of the people who work for you, but maybe someone outside of your organization. Because if you impact the life of somebody else, your life will be fuller, happier. You'll actually operate at a higher level of performance based upon the opportunity to work with people. So another theorem I like to throw out is create a difference in your surroundings and develop a passion. Now, I have a passion about cooking. I have a passion about performance. I have a lot of other things I think about in that area. You need to figure out what yours is. Let me tell you about a man who had passion. This man never made any money in his life. He was a Boy Scout camp director for about 30 years. I first met Sam, I was probably 11 years old, Cub Scout. He'd come into my hometown. I grew up in a town of about 1,400 people in western Wisconsin, small little town. And he would come into that room with all the Boy Scouts banquets that we would go to. He'd give a speech. He'd walk in loud. He'd give you a double handshake and say, "How are you?" And he'd be jumping up and down all over the place. He had a passion for impacting the lives of people, had a passion for helping people grow. I was blessed that I had a chance to spend an entire summer with Sam as a Boy Scout camp counselor at Camp Decorah near La Crosse, Wisconsin. That's not the story. I got to see a different side of Sam, where every morning at 7:15, he made all of us stand up and raise the flag. At 5:15, we had to take the flag down. We had to have discipline, accountability, and control with our people, with our Cub Scouts, that we were the leaders, the Boy Scouts that were there for the week. And it was tough. I was 15 years old at the time. There were guys who were 15 to 25 were there. We only had one night a week off. You can imagine some of those nights got pretty wild. And Sam caught us a couple times, and we knew where we stood, and we knew what he expected, and we knew what he demanded. He had integrity, he had ethics, and discipline. That's not the story. Story was about 12 years ago, I got a call that said, "Ken, we're having a weekend with Sam because we're inviting all the old camp counselors to come back and spend a weekend with Sam. Spend Friday night, Saturday you'd work in the camp fixing something, Saturday night go out for dinner, Sunday have lunch, and you could go home." I said, "I'm going to do that." So I called up a friend of mine who was also a camp counselor in Minneapolis. We drove down the Mississippi River by Lake Pepin, through the woods, over to La Crosse, and into Camp Decorah. I came up to the mess hall. There were about 15, 20 other guys standing there, along with Sam. And they were from Singapore, Montana, Wyoming, Maine, Florida, and throughout the Midwest. People drove back to see this man. Now, that's happened every 2 years since, and people still come back, even though Sam passed away about 4 years ago. And I was told on his deathbed, he had a stroke. The nurse looked down and said, "Sam, what did you do in your life? And he looked up at her and he said, I can't remember, but I sure had fun. His line was, if it isn't fun, it isn't scouting. I told Sam that I stole that line from him when I saw him, because I've said it for years, if it isn't fun, it isn't selling. And if you're not having fun in your organization and generating fun from a culture perspective, you're also missing one of the key elements in high performance. Make sure you're having fun in your life. Menu number 2, develop creativity, break out, and grow. Well, the key part here, and this article just came out last week in the paper, in a survey of 1,500 chief executive officers conducted by IBM, CEOs responded that creativity is the most important leadership quality. The good news is you can develop creativity. Creativity is, there are a lot of books on it, there's courses on it now, you can find out. Here's just quick 10, 12 steps on how to be more creative. Be more open, don't be closed-minded. A mind is like an umbrella, it only works when it's opened. Those of you who are going to shave tomorrow morning, instead of starting on the left side, start on the right side. If you floss your teeth on the top, start on the bottom. You can just do some little minor things to start changing the way you think and habit. Leadership and high performance has a major issue because we have to keep thinking about new ideas and problems and solving those ideas. And so think about how to improve your creativity. That's step number 2. Step number 3, be real, be more, be warm. I have a gentleman that I met when I moved to Knoxville. He was in my church. He used to sit in front of me. He recently died. He was like 97, 98 years old. Jim Brown was his name. And his line all the time was, when he walked up to anybody, this was in a story they wrote about him, what's going on in your life? His line was not, how you doing, what's going on in your life? It was a way to say, I'm concerned, I'm interested, I want to enhance the relationship, who are you, tell me more about what you're thinking about. So I think it's also important of high performance, and even small companies and large companies, as executives, we still got to think about the people. I heard General Powell speak recently down in Houston, and he made a comment that when he went back to the Pentagon, he went back to downstairs to the guys in the parking garage and talked to the people down there. And the Pentagon didn't have a lot of parking, so they had to park cars 2 or 3 deep sometimes. And he said, well, how do you guys decide who gets to park on the outside and who gets jammed in at the back? And he goes, if they know my name or they say hello, they get out and they get the good parking spot. Be real, be warm, take the time to say, who are you, what's going on in your life? Touch the people you work with. They'll say that you care, they'll feel you care, and it's important that you do. So I like to suggest we think about food again. And if you thought about your life and you thought, well, maybe my life is like a restaurant. I have a theme for my restaurant. I have the type of food I want to have. What's the purpose of your restaurant? What's the purpose and passion of the types of food you want to sell? And what are the principles of running that restaurant? Think about your life and say, what's my purpose? What's my passion? What's my principles? And how am I trying to get employees in my company to have purpose, passion, and principles so that they can continue to reduce their stress, have a better life, and be more purposeful? That's all about your restaurant, coming up with your menu for your life and saying, what are they? A lot of times we go through life doing lots of great things, but sometimes we forgot that we got to touch others. Specifically around tactical elements, I call this Acumen's training themes, rigors of cadence. That means the Monday morning meetings start on time and end on time. There's an agenda for them. That means sales training meetings are planned 90 days in advance with dates, times, and topics already planned and who's presenting them. That means programming or training on sales skills, product skills, operations, and industry information happen on an ongoing basis. High-performing organizations have a regular cadence of training programs. They're employee development programs from that perspective. And that's where the prescriptive performance generates itself, where there's a defined sales process, there's a defined process for everybody in my company, from the receptionist to the accounts payable person. There's a job, not a job description, but a job process description. I love the example of Subway sandwiches. You walk in and they go 6-inch or 12, and then they ask you the kind of bread, and they just walk you down the channel. High-performing organizations tend to have a very prescriptive approach of how they address your organizations. And so that's part of what you might think of from that perspective. And then discipline, accountability, and control. Discipline, accountability, and control. I love those words. Discipline from Sam. Accountability came from the first person I worked with on management systems. And control was really my recipe idea. Control is not micromanagement. Control means that I have a recipe for my business, my operations, and I'm measuring actual performance against that control mechanism. It's like a sugar pill and a real medicine pill. High-performing organizations tend to have a regular cadence and a regular process of getting things done from that perspective. Now, 4 specific things I would tell you to do in building a high-performance organization. Storytelling. Capture the stories about your organization on video and record them and play them back to your employees. You know, the time when you had a technical team work Saturday and Sunday to get that customer back up and running. Create those tribal stories, we like to call those. Put them on the employee site. New employees on their new employee onboarding process has to watch the stories. You're building belief is really what you're suggesting. I wrote an article about this. If you want a copy of the article, write that on the back of your business card. I'd be happy to send you that. Monthly meetings. Now, however your organization runs, monthly meetings are a critical time for you to be able to share your philosophy, your ethics, your accountability, your belief, your goals, your vision, improve your clarity. All of those are great opportunities for you to reinforce that. To get a salesperson to stand up and say, I want to thank the technical team for really doing a great job in that implementation, or I really want to thank marketing for running that event, getting managers to talk back and forth, getting people to talk about issues and problems. We used to, at one company I worked at, the first Thursday of every month, we had a bagel breakfast. Anybody could come in the company, and all we talked about was delivery or product issues and solutions. It's free, open, but it was an event where people could communicate. Customer visits. I'd like to suggest that if you have a company meeting, or if you have a July kickoff meeting, bring in a customer and have the customer stand up and talk about how great you were. If you've got salespeople, take them out to the customer site and have the customer tell them how great you are. Get those stories, get those belief systems, and reference letters. Usually if we're putting the sales process map together, that'll be the last step. I don't care what size company, I don't care what you do, I want a reference letter from every customer we've had. When I was vice president of sales running a channel, we talked to our partners about that story 18 years ago, and every lobby of every office was packed with reference letters. Any prospect walking in had to see them, but also every new employee on the onboarding checklist has to read the reference letters. Build belief in your organization, and make sure it all comes together from that perspective. That's why I like this theme. Together is a beautiful word. Getting together is the beginning. Keeping together is progress. Thinking together is unity. And working together is success. That's kind of the whole idea of saying, how do we get people focused together to make sure we're happy and we're working together from that belief? The last theme I want to share with you, I picked up in Puerto Rico. I was sitting in the airport with the president of our company and a couple of other vice presidents. We were just talking about our national sales conference we just had in Puerto Rico. And we were talking about what was happening and how enthusiastic we were, how well it pulled off, how good a year we had, what our year was coming up to be. And he overheard us talking, this old British gentleman. And he said, sounds like you gentlemen should take advantage of the opportunity of your lifetime during the lifetime of the opportunity. And I would suggest that a lot of you have done that in this room. It only generally happens to somebody once in their life. Sometimes people get lucky and it's twice in their life. It's the opportunity of a lifetime where you can put a thumbprint on something and look back and say, I helped do that. I helped do that. I think in the next 18 months, because of some of the changes that are impacting the industry right now, and depending upon how your organization is positioned, you have an opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime during the lifetime of that opportunity. And it's important you think about the time you have in your life. You know, you can't change the way you lived your life, but you can change the way you live your life. You can change the way you live your life. And if you have vision, clarity, you focus on high performance, and you happen to say, I have a sense of urgency in the next 18 months to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime, during the lifetime of the opportunity, you'll go far. That's why I like to suggest you need to taste it all. I hate it when people go to the restaurant and order the same chimichanga every time. I like to order different things and experiment and try new things, to try more ideas. So I want to leave you just with 3 little words. And it's really the difference between top-performing people and average people. Top-performing people do what's expected and then some. They meet their obligations fairly and responsibly and then some. They're kind, they're considerate, they're good neighbors, and then some. They can be treated or taken care of in an emergency, and then some. I like these kinds of people because they make our world so much better, and then some. So take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime and enjoy the conference. Thank you.